already have seen the minutes from we have to approve the minutes from 2 weeks ago. So do you have any questions or comments on the minutes from 2 weeks ago? Because we didn't have a forum last week.
Yeah.
There's nothing to report.
Yeah. But David did, I think, write out the minutes and send it to everybody to check out your inbox. So if you have any questions.
Sorry, the funding meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
We'll vote on
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Sure.
around
For a second.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. Also seeing, Shannon.
Oh yeah.
All right. All those in favor of approving, the minutes from May 15th, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? All right, the minutes passes. Okay, chair updates. I don't have much to say except for
What about the
What about last week?
It was last week because
We
I would
did.
have to abstain.
we're not officially hosting a meeting last week.
Oh, yeah, I guess there technically is.
Technically, we didn't have
Because on the notes from last week, it said I had unreceived absence, and I wanted to talk about that. I wanted to
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
talk about it now. Okay,
Yeah,
cool. So I wasn't sure what the process was for saying that you had to miss a meeting, because I don't
Yes.
typically have to. So I just sent an email saying that I was going to miss a meeting, but I didn't know if you have to justify it, and that's what makes it excused versus unexcused.
Okay, I will check with the bylaw, but what I did was say if you send us an email, we will put it as an excuse.
Okay, because
Yeah,
I
she
put it
did.
unexcused.
Yeah, she
And I
Okay,
sent
so
the
I'm
first
gonna,
email.
I'm gonna,
Yeah, but it might have just been David who did.
yeah, because,
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to be clear for the record.
yeah.
Just like that.
Okay,
Put it
just-
in for the record.
Okay, put it in
Okay.
minutes, yeah. So if you send me an email, I think this topic can be combined with the chair update because the only thing I want to talk about in chair update is about attendance. So I appreciate everybody who came last week, and I really want to emphasize the importance because I think we sent out with 3 or 4 VSOs, right, episode?
Mhm.
Yeah, so a lot of the VSOs they came in and they were told that we couldn't, get funding whatsoever because we couldn't, vote on anything. So I want to make all the counselors in the room right now to know that it's important that you come and you vote. Even if you don't vote, you come and you count, and that's the most important thing for now. And also the discussion is also very important, so please do come every meeting. And if you can't come, send Jesse, and I also get an email from Junior this week asking about the proxy policy, so I want to talk about this too. So if you cannot make it, you can ask a friend of yours or anyone who come in, or from your same district. So if you really like to investigate from engineering, you have to ask someone from engineering to come and serve as a proxy. And the proxy, I think there is also one more rule about how many proxies you can need, but typically you can send in the proxy over here, but you do have to notify the chair beforehand. You cannot just show up, the proxy cannot just show up and say, hey, I'm going to give a proxy for someone. Okay? Alright, and that's all.
I'm sorry, is that all in email form for people who aren't here?
I'm sorry, what?
Is that all in like an email form? Did you email that information?
Yeah, I
Hold on a
can.
minute.
Yeah, also, David. Yeah, David is here.
Oh, yeah, my dog is. I'll keep digging until you get that.
Cool, that's all for chair updates.
I'd make a super quick announcement since I have to leave early.
Sure.
So 2 things. We recently changed the undergraduate Senate committee structure to allow for the formation of joint issue committees between all 3 branches of the ASSU. So we're working on finalizing a list of joint ASSU priorities, whether that's affordability, mental health and wellness, diversity, inclusion. The goal will be to have these committees have members from the GSC, from UGS, and from the executive committee. So if you guys are interested, I'll send out after this meeting just a list of these priorities so you can add things to them and self-select if you want to join any of them. And the second thing, our cabinet actually has this year a graduate student affordability position, which we're really excited about. Unfortunately, we didn't have any grad students apply. So if you know anyone that would be interested, please tap them and let them know that the position's open. They can reach out to us. We can just have a brief interview with them.
Just email you directly?
Yeah, that would be great.
Which
Yeah.
email? Sure.
It's Erica98, BRICA98.
Could you,
I can-
back in the email that I sent.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Then I can forward it.
Okay, perfect. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Could you send about the position and everything to me so I can
Yes,
forward it there?
of course.
Cool.
Thank you.
Alright, next, sorry guys, I changed the agenda a little bit due to some of the I get some text messages here last night, so I changed the agenda. So if you pull up the agenda, you can see some of the updated work items. I moved the bill to confirm the elections commissioner for 2019 to 2020 earlier because he has to leave early. So, any questions or comments? I think this was left over from 2 weeks ago. Yes. Okay. If nobody has any questions, I'm gonna just move for a vote. All right, I'm gonna move to vote on this. Since it's a bill, we will do a hand vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand to confirm our new elections commissioner for 2019 to 2020. Which one of you are going to take the time for the vote?
I'll take it.
Okay.
Alright. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
All right, opposed? Okay, sorry. Abstention? Nothing personal here. Alright, congratulations. Thank you. Sorry we couldn't do this last week.
No worries.
Alright, then let's do all the updates, social update.
That's me. Okay, so this is my last social update. We did grand formal, and then I got very sick for a whole week afterwards. This is why I'm doing it now. Grand formal was really good. No hospital transport, which is always my first measure of is this good. Yes, what helps a lot with that is like alcohol policies, as well as the EMTs and blue SCPs, they're uniformed officers, as well as the sheriffs who come by and help me before and after. So all those people are involved in making the event safe, and it was good. We sold out all our tickets, we made our money that we needed to make, people had a great time. All the photos are up. The one photographer's photos are still coming. They're both student photographers, so I don't rush them. Whenever they have them, that's when it's good. I hope everybody came and had fun, and that's it. I think I'm gonna do a volunteer appreciation event, but it'll be really small. It will just be people who have been working on events for a long time, and they just have no recognition. It's really labor that really just nobody else wants to do. So I'm gonna take them to dinner or something like that. I'm gonna print them certificates. And speaking of certificates, we also need to do something. This should be on the DL, so it can be a surprise. We should do something for Nancy, the Student Activities and Leadership Director. So she's retiring, and her retirement party is next week, I think.
Next Thursday,
Yeah. So we should make her one of those plaques that's like from the GSC to Nancy. I'll look into it and see what we have to do. I gotta hurry, because those things take a while to make. But that's it.
I want to say thank you to Gabby because Gabby has been with Solution for how many years?
I don't know. As long as I've been here till 5.
5 years. So all the graph formals and all those great events in the past 5
Many
years.
good formals.
We have to thank Gabby for. And I want to say this like both as a GSC chair and also as a friend. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'll be around. I have a big travel schedule the next year, so it's like hard for me to predict when I'll be here now, but I'll be around.
Perfect. Alright. Do you have any questions for Gabby?
Lawrence, I have some cash sales, so I'll let you know if I like deposit them to ASUC myself or if you have to do it. It's very simple. On the ASUC Financial, you fill out a form. It's like the opposite of reimbursement, but it looks the same. It's like I have this many 20s, this many 10s, and then you go give it in person to SSE, and then a couple weeks later in a programming account, you should see like a deposit. Yeah.
You can submit a guest deposit. It doesn't have to just be.
Okay, great.
Also, Gabby Julie says she'll check in next week with you to figure out the transition.
That's
And
it.
she hasn't yet found a social co-chair, but if anybody has recommendations, email her, let her know.
Very good proxy.
That's all I got.
Alright. So let's move to that update. Anna and
Yeah.
Cory.
we could use, the food excess that occurs in undergrad. So like in an undergrad meal plan, you basically at the end of the year, like the money that you've accumulated either in like cardinal dollars, or food swipes just like doesn't roll over to the next year. So we're trying to see how we can use that, to like help, grad students with food insecurity. And we wanna start the discussions now as soon as possible. And they're gonna be coming, I think Grace only will be coming around, and when R&D, comes to, we will like sort of like pitch what we have. But we have two ideas. One is to like implement swipe out hunger, and then the other one was kind of like using your cardinal dollars to like in Munger to buy groceries and have it somewhere in a food pantry. But since we're coming up close to the quarter, we're thinking just like swipe out hunger, and the things that we're mostly focused in making sure that happens in that sort of branch is like making sure that the students can access the swiping without needing the help of an undergrad, so that they can just like be on their own schedule. And like some of the challenges with like the food pantry is like the same as like with the food bank that one of, that the Solidarity Network had used, that like organized, is like who keeps it up and who maintains it and things like that. And where would it be? And if you have any ideas or you wanna participate, please let me know. And then also last week, I met with the Daily to go over the #Stanford 2 event that happened earlier in April, because there wasn't a reporter that had gone, but we still want some press on it. So I like debriefed them on what's going on, so that we can get an article around it. And that's it for me. Kari, do you have anything?
So we also sent out
Oh, yeah.
a call for members of DAC for next year for the leadership team. And we've gotten folks who are interested in the 2 co-chair positions and in the advocacy coordinator role, which is me for my role, yeah, that I've had this past year. But we still have one more role for an events coordinator, so let me know if any of y'all are interested, or if you have any friends who are interested in doing advocacy work or events coordinating around marginalized communities.
Cool. Also, I emailed R&D asking to be prepared for tonight, so when coordinate comes to me, they should be prepared for R&D. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, let's move to VSO funding requests.
Okay, yeah. So the Stanford National Medical Association. That's okay. Okay, so they're having a celebration during this of summer in Juneteenth, and it'll be on June 15th from 4:30 to 6 p.m. in the Lane Library in the School of Medicine. They're expecting 75 graduate students, and they're requesting $650 for food, $200 for alcohol, and $38 for event services, for a total of $888.
Okay, any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Okay, the funding passes. Congrats.
Stanford Australian and New Zealanders.
Awesome.
So they're having a barbecue for Australian and New Zealanders. It's an event that they're, I don't know why, it doesn't matter. It'll be on June 5th at 4:00 p.m. in the Lake La Bonita barbecue area. They're expecting 40 people, and they're requesting $420, $200 for food, $200 for alcohol, and $20 for event services.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Okay, the funding passes. Congrats.
And the Stanford Chinese Music Ensemble.
Here.
Okay. So they're having their year-end concert, and it's performance open to all students. It'll be on June 1st at 7:30 p.m. in the Campbell Recital Hall in the Brown Music Center. They're expecting 290 people, half undergrads and half grads, and they're also getting funding from ASSU, like you personally. They're requesting $1,000 for food and, yeah, that's it.
Any questions, comments? Seeing none, we will do voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Okay, the voting passes.
Do we have to do the organizations from last week?
Yes.
I don't know if they're,
No, they're not on the agenda, but you can call them.
the Stanford University PA Student Association. Okay. So they're having their end of year barbecue as well. It'll be on June 13th from 1 to 6 p.m. in the Raines House at Willis Courtyard. They're expecting 50 people. They're requesting $450 for food, $100 for alcohol, and $79 for event services for a total of $629. And there'll be veggie burgers.
Any questions or comments? Alright, let's do a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Okay, the motion passes.
Women in Earth Sciences. So they're having their end of the year ice cream social. It'll be on June 5th at 3 p.m. at the Arco Courtyard. Where's Arco?
Green neuroscience.
The green.
It's near quantum engineering.
They're expecting 50 people, and there'll be $150 that is being used for food.
Any questions, comments? Alright, let's do a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Okay, the voting passes. I saw you do opposed votes.
I said aye, just.
Very close to.
The Asian American Graduate Student Association. So they're having a joint event. It's the Cross Grad Asian Group Dinner. It's gonna be May, today, at 7 p.m. in the Stanford Business School. They're only requesting funding for 7 people, but I think it's 28 people total. And they're only requesting $70 for food.
Cool. Any questions, comments? Alright, let's vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Okay, the voting passes.
Enjoy your dinner.
The Stanford Graduate Catholic Student Association. And,
It's the same.
yeah, they have 2 events. Okay, that's it.
Cool. Alright. I think we're 10 minutes earlier. I'm gonna see whether Army is here. If they're here, we can start earlier.
Feel free. I'll send you a text.
Yep.
Oh.
Courtney, right? I'm just, oh, sorry, great. The first one.
Okay. I was like, there are 2 choices.
I think it's registered, but at this
Yeah, it's
level,
at 6.
okay.
Alright. This is counting planning.
Oh, is it?
Cool. Oh, yeah.
We had a resolution.
No,
forever ago. Several students in the show.
So,
Yeah.
Ask you a question.
No, I will, I mean, we have to say, the resolution and voice this opinion and we'll have the conversation. And it did.
Yeah,
And it's not even.
Yeah, man.
Like it's the itemized.
You express interest, yeah.
Yes, so we're all going, a lot of people are like,
Okay. Alright guys. Okay, Larry's here. Do you want to do another self-introduction first?
We can?
Sure.
You up for it?
Yes, yes.
Okay, you want me to start?
Yeah.
I'm Jocelyn Green, I'm Executive Director for Strategic Communications and Residential Dining Enterprises.
And Khalil Wells, Assistant Director for Stanford Dining.
Hello everyone, Rebecca Benaderet, I'm one of the 2 graduate housing assistant directors.
Oh, well, okay, sorry.
Please go for the updates first.
Okay, alright, we'll do it. So since this is the last section of this quarter.
Actually, next week, guys.
Next week?
Yeah, next
Is
week.
it another one?
Oh, we're
Yeah, because the class ends on Thursday, so officially speaking, we have you.
So are we coming back on Thursday?
Yeah, no, Wednesday, next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday?
Yes.
Alright, so I'm gonna save my, my end of the year oration then for next week.
Okay.
I just wanted to mention, I had intended to bring a copy of the flyer that includes summer hours for dining and cafes. There's an error in it, so I'll have to get you that by email, hopefully tomorrow.
Sure.
I wanted to point out to folks that next week, Thursday, which I think is June 6th, is the last day, spring quarter of the dinner service in Forbes.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but for the summer quarter, Lakeside will be open and available and folks can eat.
So for dinner as well?
Yeah,
Oh,
for the summer.
wow.
It's open for it's only open for 8 weeks. Summer is a 10-week session, but Lakeside's only open for, and my understanding now is that Forbes will bring dinner back when Lakeside closes at, I don't know, mid to late October.
So
August,
basically,
sorry.
HP is not gonna be affected Lakeside during the summer.
It's not offered in the summer.
Oh, it's not open in summer. Perfect.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so I will get you a schedule that reflects all of that and get, you and Gabby certainly, the image, so you can share that,
Okay. Perfect.
around folks will know.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I think that's all we have, but, as always, we're here for questions.
Yes. Anna.
Yeah, hi, Anna, School of Engineering rep and Diversity and Advocacy Committee co-chair. So with a lot of the discussions that have been had publicly through the Stanford Daily and also in this room about like graduate student food insecurity, some of the solutions that we had like brainstormed were like eating, like getting the leftovers from the dining halls or having like a food bank and stuff like that. And some undergraduates were really moved, namely Grace, who's represented this duo, Grace and Courtney, who would like to put forward some idea like Swipe Out Hunger, which has been implemented in different schools. We're kind of like trying to brainstorm how you can partner with us in order to make this a reality.
Yeah, so I guess, hi everyone, my name's Grace, I'm an undergrad, I'm studying human biology, I'm a junior here at Stanford, and I first want to acknowledge that this is not the first time that you guys have heard this proposal. I know that students have talked about this on this campus before, and there are proposals like this on the East Coast at schools like MIT all the way to the Bay Area, like Berkeley. And I also want to acknowledge that there are financial concerns that have been voiced from R&D surrounding a program like this. But I would like to propose a program slightly different from Swipe Out Hunger and more similar to the program at MIT, and talk a little bit about that program and kind of food insecurity on the MIT campus. So I couldn't find stats on our Stanford campus, and I think it's important that we do collect that data going forward. However, on MIT's campus, about 10% of students said they went to bed hungry at least one time per week, and about 5% said 3 or more times per week. These numbers increased drastically when they were graduate students with children. Specifically, about 13% of those students said they went to bed hungry. I understand that undergraduate food insecurity is not as big of an issue because of the fact that we're required to have meal plans. Although there are still undergraduate students that are food insecure, graduate student food insecurity is much bigger of an issue. And after talking to Anna, we said that it's more of like where intersections occur, so amongst international students or students with children. And so that's why I wanted to propose a swipe sharing initiative. Specifically the swipe sharing initiative that I'm thinking of, and I'd love advice, you guys' ideas, is an initiative in which we would be sharing only guest swipes. So only looking at guest swipes and basically having an online portal in which undergraduate students could donate their guest swipes to this portal, and then those guest swipes being able to be shared through that kind of pool of guest swipes with graduate students and undergraduate students alike. So from the graduate student perspective, you'd be able to log online to a website and be able to request 3 swipes. If you wanted to request more, you could go talk to a dean about that. But just kind of basic, being able to request some swipes and being able to use those as far as if you are faced with food insecurity. Yeah, question.
How many guest swipes does a typical undergrad?
So we get 5 a quarter. And so we aren't able to use those guest swipes, and there's no easy way for us to share those other than directly swiping someone into the building. I know I've heard of graduate students asking other people to swipe them in. I talked to a friend yesterday that says she knows a graduate student that does that, but this program would strive to make it easier for that sharing to occur so that graduate students weren't having to actually like ask an undergraduate student for the swipe, and it would be easier to occur.
And also we recognize that this is not ideal for families, that's why we were like trying to do a food pantry solution too, but with our limited time right now, this is what we're gonna be focusing on.
Yeah.
Sure, so in the current meal plan, guest meal swipes have no monetary value, which is why we don't allow students to use them for like events or barbecues or things like that. So putting them together, it's a different type of program. The guest meal swipes are so that you can bring your family to the dining hall, so that you can bring people that you're going to interact with to kind of support community building in the dining halls. To have them be monetized in that sort of way would mean we would need a different funding source for that.
Could I ask then, so there are programs in which students have shared swipes in the past. Specifically, there have been email chains this quarter about places like Flea High School students, the Phoenix Scholars, Raza Days, and Listen to the Silence, where students have had like online forums and gotten swipes from other students to be able to provide food for these high school students.
At Stanford?
Yes, at Stanford. So is
They
that?
have swipes for high school students at Stanford?
Yes.
I don't think any of those have been successful.
So I know they collected the swipes, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's definitely happened before. I went to undergrad here as well, and so I graduated 2016, and I think it's happened.
Or were they guest swipes or were they full
That's what
swipes?
I wasn't sure.
I'm
Because
not
most of the donation
Are full swipes?
Are full swipes.
Okay.
So like what event services will do is that they have a service where they'll put on like food events in exchange for a swipe from an individual. So
No, I think there's a misunderstanding because we are not associated with event services, so whatever they're getting.
no, I know you
can-
aren't.
You can spend your
yeah.
meal plan or any part of that in an event services event.
And Luca,
Oh, yeah, I did have a question, if you, just some clarification around what you said regarding guest swipes not being monetized. So, even though they're not monetized, they're still likely an associated expense, right? Because you somehow determined that 5 guest swipes is the most appropriate number. Was that just because the average family tends to be 5 people, or?
I don't know where the decision for the number came from.
Okay.
It
And,
is
and
what it
understand
is.
with families, children under 6, 7, 10 eat free. Children up to
May
another
change.
threshold, does it change? Well, yeah, but for now, I don't have the statistics, but so there's a deep discount, and I think something like 70 or more percent of the students on the campus, the children on the campus, eat free, so it's a.
But still, those like their parents aren't able to get into the dining hall. That's a concern, right? And so that's where initiatives like this might be helpful, trying to share those swipes.
and then also, we have heard, like, we know that Stanford does donate the leftovers, to different, nonprofits in the area and stuff like that. So we were thinking like this would also be a sustainability, upper hand. You wouldn't necessarily have to transport that if we had like graduate student access to these meal swipes, or, sort of like a way to share those resources.
To share the leftovers.
So I know the leftovers are currently, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I understand with the Stanford food recovery people, the leftovers are being taken, but obviously the hotline leftovers cannot be used and cannot be collected. So there is food waste currently in the dining halls from what I understand, surrounding the food in the hotline. And so if we're having students on this campus that are food insecure, I guess my thought process is that it's kind of ridiculous that we're having access food and not a way to share it. And so can we think of ways or problem solve ways in which we can share that food?
So food off the hotline is exactly what we donate.
No, you cannot donate the food off the hotline. You donate all the access food from the back.
So from the back means we've pulled it off as its excess from the hotline, and we are refrigerating that and putting it into cans for them. So it is hot food
Okay.
that has been cooled,
Yeah.
and then they come and pick it up cold.
But it's not
There's
like out on the
there's
bar,
certain
right?
foods that have different requirements that
Okay.
cannot be donated.
Certainly.
Okay.
So there's-
But so there is food though that is like at the end of the day you have food that's like so Ariaga dining, like you have food, right, that's out that cannot be donated. Is that
but
wrong?
there's a small portion, but most of it can be donated as long as it's been controlled. We take temperatures every 15 minutes of the food that's out on the hotline. As long as it's been temperature controlled and then cooled down properly and stored properly, they can come and pick it up.
Okay.
So there is some food waste, but it's I mean, we still do donate quite a bit.
I think we are very interested in conversations and brainstorming and sort of figuring out what within the particular system, which is not exactly like at MIT or some other school, what might be possible. And so maybe that's a conversation that continues. I know that Eric has had a number of conversations with students about various aspects of food insecurity on campus and
on the affordability task force, we wanted, this will be like our big ask, but Anna's moving on a different timeline, so obviously like we can do both things or all things, but on the, and also what I'm asking on the affordability task force, the excess food wouldn't be enough, like I need more. So,
what's
like
Anna's,
obviously I
know
want
which
like
one
a
it is, Anna.
big comprehensive.
Sorry.
Like what I'm proposing would be like a big comprehensive thing to take care of everybody. But it's okay to like start
It
slow.
sounds like
Yeah,
something
that's
that might
what
go
I'm saying,
even
like,
well beyond
start
Stanford
out.
dining. So what's your timeline, Anna?
Basically as soon as possible. There are people, I don't know if y'all have read the Stanford Daily articles about students that are picking off like fruit off trees to feed their families, which is totally okay if that's what you have to do, but we would hope that they would have access to more if possible. And the people that we are most concerned about are international students, people with families, and first gen low income students. So if we could even just start a pilot with these identities to begin with, that would be to like sort of help you set up for like the affordability future recommendations. That would be good for me.
And I guess also like just a question. I'd love to kind of like maybe email you guys after or find out more information because I know there are swipe sharing between groups that are happening right now. And so kind of finding out more of like how that is happening. And you guys might not know about it necessarily, but I've seen like multiple email chains. I have 4 from someone that sent them to me about swipe sharing that's going on currently on this campus. So kind of working with you to see how that is working, and if it's working effectively there, can we use it to address these issues?
Are there any conversations currently going on about this at R&D?
Are there
Conversations about food insecurity of the student population?
Always. This is one of the biggest issues. When we go and meet with other universities, this is always top of mind issues. We brainstorm on how other institutions are dealing with this problem across the nation.
And like, just to give you an example, within the undergraduate population, when this is several years ago, 3 4 years ago, some ASSU students first brought this issue to us. We worked with them on several things. We worked on a survey, really trying to understand where the need is. It sounds like that's still a question that we can't quite get our hands around. things like percentages of students and precisely where are the barriers. It's different for undergraduates, obviously, because if they're living in housing, they're probably on the meal plan, right? We also did a couple of different programs during spring break, which was a challenge for them, because many students leave campus, but certainly fly students don't necessarily have the means to do that. So we first worked with them 1 year on a program to, they got donations, we gave them for that, and I did some, cardinal dollars, which they were able to use in cafes. We kept them open hours so that it would be accessible. It wasn't as successful as we hoped, so after that year, every year since then, we've kept the dining hall open for spring break. So it's a matter of figuring out what will work, how we will get what students will engage with. It was a little bit challenging at first to understand, because they told us, if you would just give us access to these cafes, that would work, and that wasn't quite the right answer.
Can I jump in? So
yeah.
I was on campus and I'm a fly student,
Yeah.
and I remember consistently wanting a dining hall open,
Right.
so it's news to me that people were specifically asking for cardinal dollars.
They weren't asking for cardinal dollars, they were asking for,
Yes,
for cafes. That was in a survey.
Yeah, because I think we were repeatedly told no about having the dining hall open. So my recollection is that for several years we asked for there to be a dining hall open. We didn't get anywhere, and then this compromise happened with like a food bank and cardinal dollars, and that, as you said, didn't kind of pan out.
I think, and you know, so commend the students here for doing it. I think that perhaps that asking is not asking in the right place, because I know from the moment we were approached, we were working on a solution. It was pretty short notice, I think, the first year to have arranged for a dining hall. It doesn't take some work, but we did it every year after that, so.
Yeah. I think to kind of like caveat it, I think that'd be like a really great conversation to have with the fly community. And I work in the office, and I'd be more than happy to set it up, because the experience that we've had is that for several years we wanted a dining hall to be open, and there was resistance. And so if that isn't the case, if that's just been a misunderstanding that's kind of percolated in the community, I would love to have that conversation and clear it up, because I think it's something that is coloring our experience of each other. And I had another question, like, so there isn't anything stopping students, undergrads, from choosing to give their guests directly to graduate students. They have 5 guest meal swipes. They can do whatever they wish with them.
To the dining hall.
They can guest them into it. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that if there was a student initiated program, that guest meal swipes won't subsequently be cut. And if they are, they'll be evenly cut, and not just from students who engage in this program. So I'm just thinking, like, if 5 is the limit, is the dining hall prepared for students to systematically use all of their meal swipes, or is that a concern that R&D has?
That's a good question. You know, I don't know. This hasn't been, you know, thought of at that level of, okay, we're gonna have a bunch of people using the excess guest meals. I mean, the meal plan is, and the prices for the meal plan take into account the missed meal factor and things like that, so that we don't have to charge people more and assume that you're going to eat every single meal that you say you are. It takes into account that we're not charging you the full cost of serving every single meal, knowing that you're not going to eat every single meal. So I'm sure that the guest meals have a missed meal factor built into them as well, that not 100% of these meals are going to be used up. So I think the question is, are undergraduates going to pay for that?
But also, has there been data collected recently on if that like calculation is actually correct? Like, if that economic calculation that you're talking about, is that actually like the sustainable level? Is that correct? Is that, because I know personally I've never used any of my guest swipes, so obviously that's not what you're accounting for in your factor. And so there are people that use all of their guest swipes, and maybe it evens out, but my question is it actually evening out where you want it to be?
So we have the numbers, and it's fairly consistent. I mean, almost like literally predictably consistent. How much the missed meal factor is going to be just with meal swipes per year. And I haven't looked into the guest meals. Honestly, we don't look into them We haven't looked into them that closely, but I'm sure we can, and I don't know the answer to that, whether that is as consistent as the missed meal factor is.
And I guess, sorry, go ahead. Oh, I guess the other question then that I had is like, you do still have access food. That's like, there's no debate, there is access food that's going to other places in Santa Clara County, correct?
Yes.
So if there is access food, I don't understand why we can't be eating that food. Like, I guess I don't understand why, like, I paid for the swipes, right? I mean, I understand your calculations and your missed factors, but you've already paid for that food, and that's already going into your calculations, that's already going into your economic side of it. So why can't that food be distributed on campus or effectively eaten by Stanford students?
So those food distribution programs are organizations, and they're programs that are run by people. They have funding, they have a refrigerated truck that they've bought, presumably they pay for it. They have drivers that come to each of the locations and pick that up. They have centers that reheat the food, and there's somebody there to do that. They have people that serve the food, and there's somebody to do. So the infrastructure is what you're asking to provide.
Yeah, but I guess I'm not thinking of it as providing the infrastructure, I'm just thinking of it as more people eating the food in the first place.
It's like, but you're thinking of it post dining hall, and she's
I'm
saying
thinking of it
just
in
come
the
to
dining hall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I have something related. So since the whole process of donating that food is so complicated, would that be possible that after the regular closing time of the dining hall, like for 15 to 30 minutes, you allow people to get in for free, but if some food runs out, then it runs out? Would that be a solution so that the leftovers can be eaten by people that really cannot afford it, but then they don't have that variety or quantity, because if it runs out, it runs out?
And
Would that
So-
be a solution?
It would be a change to our program, because right now, every dining hall is really trying to run so that the last student gets the same experience as the first student, and to make sure that we're not running out of food. So what you would see in that case, if we were literally trying to forecast and cook, you would see students that were legit, that had paid, run out of food. And it would degrade their experience, because we'd be cooking for a set number instead of cooking for our students. So the degradation to the student, to the service that would come to the students that are actually paying for it is the cost. I think you'd have to talk to the students.
you explain
to-
Many times I stay in the dining hall.
Speaking order?
Yeah, can we?
Take notes and speak order.
So many times when I eat in like when I get in like the last 20 minutes of say Arilaga, and then when I really see the closing time is going to come, I will grab the food I need, and usually like 2 minutes after the closing time, I start to see staffs to collect all the plates, so that regardless if I come in last minute, I wouldn't get that food. So if those food can be left on table for another 15-20 minutes, then actually for a person like me that get in last minute, I will have better experience, and I wouldn't need to rush to get my food.
It changes the program, right? It changes. If you knew that you can come in for free for the last 10 minutes, who pays?
All the undergraduates.
Because you're mandated.
Because it's
to.
mandated.
Okay.
I guess like if the fear is like that grad students will come in and hoard and eat the extra food at the end, because all the like it won't change the number of undergraduates who are required to have meal plans.
I
if they
think,
live on
I think there are
campus.
a number of different possibilities that can happen. One of the things we worked at, for example, with a program that runs over winter break, which is a case-by-case assessment of needs for students, is we can find you housing, or how do we feed you when we're still dining hall open? And there's been a lot of concern about options that involve someone receiving a package that would identify them as a person who's receiving this, of going to a location, and by going there, they're identifying themselves as being in need in that way. And so I think if there were an obvious, easy solution, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I think it's worth having the conversations and working it out. I think if folks in the GSC want to put together a group and we can invite you in and have sort of an in-depth conversation on that. That actually is a model we've used, and we're happy to work on that. But I think it does really require, you know, looking at each thing and what are the benefits, what are the downsides, what can we do to balance those out for everybody.
You bring up an important point, Jocelyn, and I've seen in programs like at Columbia where they have a token system that you can apply for if you are food insecure. It puts you at this kind of level. You're branded. You're somebody with this token that has to come and eat, and you're separated by the times. You're separated by this stuff. It's not. It's hard. It's difficult. That program is not optimal either because it separates people out and it makes them feel excluded from the normal dining times and separated out to these kind of fringe dining times into this kind of fringe program. You know what I mean? So I don't have all the answers, and I want to keep working with you guys to find out a good solution. But some of these things have been tried before, and the reaction from the students involved isn't great either.
Gabby?
Yeah, so I spent a lot of time looking into this and like running this, and before when I was younger at school, like at a low-income school. And of course, it has to be the same for everybody. I don't think that it should be tokens or like a different time. The whole point of doing successfully is that you can't tell who's in it and who's not. I think the electronic infrastructure is there. So like Eric and I have talked about this. It's like if I had money to say I want these students, here are their SunNets, and it's not me that does that. It would be somebody like a Glodine, like a confidential resource of the university, not another student, right? So say the appropriate person who is confidential and like Ken or somebody like that, you know, somebody with their right degree, experience, all of that to do it. He says, here's the list, here's the SunNets, put on this many meals. I know that you can do that. So like that part's good. When you were saying there's an easy solution to be done is true, and the whole reason this is a problem is because I don't think that you have the money or you haven't been given the money or the infrastructure to actually run it. So I don't think that it's hard logistically to do the dining hall part. I think the food bank part is a little harder because I haven't seen enough sustained interest in working in the food bank. Coming from a university where we had one of those, where hundreds of students working at it every day. I'm not sure we could do that here just because our school's so much smaller numbers-wise. It's not a big state school. But I think the part to make this happen doesn't lie necessarily with you. It lies with like the upper administration funding, and it lies with, I think, the long-range planning and what I assume will be like a fundraising effort to go with that. The fact that like we can't use the leftover food, like we're not sure that that's enough for everybody, signals that this is to be a big effort, and that you will need like money and maybe an extra staff member to manage it. So I think we gotta bump it up. We have to bump it up to like the budget group, the provost. I think we're not talking to the right level yet.
Okay. Thank you, Grace.
Yeah, I guess I'm still, like, I think I would agree that I think it's a good idea to bump it up, but I'm still confused from like inside the dining hall. If we're having access food inside the dining halls, why can't we just have more students inside the dining hall? So I think I'm still struggling to comprehend. I understand your economic models. I understand that you're worried about the sustainability aspect of financial situation, but there is access food that is not used by Stanford students, and you are giving food away to Santa Clara County, and so why can't we have, and like at MIT only 9% of the students were using their sweatshirt program. It's not a huge percent of the student body that's using their program. So why can't we have like a couple extra graduate students coming into the dining halls with that sweatshirt program? I guess is where I'm still struggling to get my mind around why it's quote unquote not financially responsible.
But it sounds like that's something that is happening now, right? And a student could do.
No, so it's not, so the issue is it's not happening anonymously, it's not happening effectively. So it's happening as far as if you're a graduate student that feels comfortable enough to ask a random undergraduate student.
Or an undergrad that you know.
Or an undergrad that you know for their guest swipe, then it's happening. or in these other situations, who knows what's happening? Obviously, you guys are unclear of them, and I'm a little bit unclear as well. However, I just don't understand why it could not happen in an efficient way. Does that make sense? You're still struggling. You don't understand.
No, I totally understand. It's just I'm struggling to grasp with the numbers to help you to help explain it to you from just a business sense. So the food that we give to the food donations, they provide the infrastructure and the service to handle that food.
Yeah.
They keep it refrigerated. They're responsible for keeping it at temp. They're responsible for serving it and doing those types of things. Because that's just not in our budget to manage.
And I'm not asking you to put that in your budget. All I'm asking you to do is to basically give
But how would that work? I have extra chicken.
Yeah, so
You want me to put it in a pan?
I'm just asking to let like an extra, I don't know, let's just say an extra like 100 students in on a weekly basis.
Okay, so an extra 100 students coming in after we close.
No, not after you close. Coming in exactly like normal students.
So what you're talking about?
Yeah, I don't think we're talking about the same thing.
You're talking about leftover food.
I'm not talking about leftover food.
So
I'm saying you're having leftover food.
If I let an extra 100 students in, right, to a dining
Throughout the meal period.
Throughout the meal period, we'd still be preparing meals and preparing food at the normal rate that we would still have leftover food.
So then 1,000 students?
Okay, well, we keep
Would that be better?
feeding students for free, that's the challenge.
I mean, as much as you increase the numbers of the students, we are going to staff up, we are going to cook, and we are going to
I thought you
have
meant like you would
food
still
that's
have
not eaten.
leftovers. I was like, oh.
Right.
No, it's we do it during the summer. We
It's not like
serve
we prepare a certain amount.
three
We prepare
times
so
the amount of
much more
students
needs.
that we have, and even to our best estimates, and our guys are very good at forecasting and estimating how much food we're going to prepare. They are excellent at it. We're going to have a small percentage that's just going to be left over.
And actually, we have programs to work on trying to minimize that, obviously.
Yeah, so when we're talking about the excess food, that's a constant.
Yeah.
Right? That's always going to be there. It's how do we put that excess food to best use? Now, what we're delivering to the food donations per dining hall, it's relatively small. We're not, I mean, it's not a huge amount of food that's left over. These guys are good. They understand what they're supposed to be producing, and they have budgets and numbers that they have to meet too, so there's an impetus there to not have that excess food. But you're asking us to put that excess food to use, and I'm asking you, how would that look for you, for a grad student? This excess food, I've got 5 pieces of chicken breast left over at the end of the night. What do you want me to do with that?
So so I think what I thought was different from the way you run your program. So I think it's better to understand how you're running the program, that you're continuing to produce food until that last student enters. And I think with that, I understand your fears about a meal swipe program. I still I still think that if I have 5 guest swipes, I still think that there should be an effective way for me to share those guest swipes. I still don't see why that would need to necessarily increase the cost of the program. I understand your fears about it, and I think those are valid, but I still don't think, I think that, I still think I should be able to share those and use those in an effective manner, especially as a student that uses no guest swipes. I should be able to share them with graduate students if I so choose.
Thank you. So for me, it's like, okay, so we talked about the fact that like guest swipes don't have a monetary value, but we do have a monetary value when it comes to cardinal dollars, and that doesn't run over in the year. And
are you talking about meal plan dollars?
Yeah, is
There's
that
2 different systems, meal plan dollars and cardinal dollars.
Yeah,
okay? When I was in undergrad, they were the same. They were the same thing.
So
meal plan dollars come with the meal. Cardinal dollars you have to buy on top of.
Okay,
well,
so I mean like
some
meal
plans
plan.
include cardinals, you know?
Yeah.
I know some of the
There are
include-
extra bonus, so we have a standard meal plan, you can pay extra, it's still the same amount, you get extra cardinal dollars for the extra amount that you pay.
Okay, so
Or
I
like
guess
an ultimate flex.
I'll
plan.
say like yes. So like the meal plan dollars can be used, for example, in Old Union, correct? Or
Yes.
Okay.
At TAP.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
At TAP and at Coho.
No, Coho's not a part of our meeting.
Okay, but Treehouse?
No,
Not
Co
part of
Trias and
R&D.
Raise are their own thing.
Yeah.
Okay,
Owned by Ray.
so just tap.
Tap market at
So
moment.
there's,
It's
I
any
have,
R&D
I have to,
theory.
there's a whole list.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
the R&E self-operated cafes will accept meal plan dollars, except possibly the ones that are in strictly graduate areas. I have to check on those, but those typically, graduate students don't have meal plan dollars, so,
Correct.
right? Okay.
So,
Cardinal dollars can be used throughout the retail cafes.
okay, so
I
that's,
just want to give everybody a reminder we're almost run up at our schedule, so
okay.
yeah.
So I'll finish, thank you.
Sorry,
So basically, what I was wondering is like, how can we use those excess meal plan dollars if what we need is monetary value, to help, as sort of like a proxy to like the guest swipe, idea of like, you can donate that money to graduate students, for them to use in like TAP or whatever other places where you take those meal plan dollars.
So.
Would that be?
Those are still part of the cost.
Yeah, but the excess meal plan dollars is, I don't know how often that is. Those are very, very,
'Cause I remember-
I will say that when we did the survey 3 or 4 years ago, whatever it was,
Yeah.
many students said they ran out of meal plan dollars before the end of, I guess you're gonna report, or I don't know, how it's filled out. So I think there are some research points that would be useful to consider that we just need more information about it. So I would wonder whether that represents even a significant body of students. Just from what I've been told by students, I don't have statistics, hard data to judge that.
I have a question.
Yeah, there's like,
Yeah, sorry.
but,
You have me to.
yeah, oh, that's fine. You can.
Okay, so first of all, for the excess meal plan dollars, since many students run out, so actually that wouldn't change the big structure since it's very little money that get used. Let's suppose that we put together all the systems, websites for making this happen, which means you guys don't need to do anything. We will take care of, say, all the software engineering part, all those parts to make this happen. And would you guys be willing to let this happen? Like, suppose you guys don't need to make any extra efforts on this. We will do all those parts to make this kind of meal or meal plan exchange possible. Would you guys be willing to say, yes, let's run it? Like, let's maybe like try for like a short period of time and see how it works. Maybe it significantly increases the cost of your side, then we can say we stop. But would you guys be willing to let this happen, say, for a short period of time, just
Pilot
to try?
program.
Yeah.
Well, I think we wanna look at it, and I think it's possible to predict the impact of that on cost. I think that's a real challenge for us, because the system is not one with excess in it, right? It's not like we have this profit that we get because you don't eat your meal swipe. And so I think that's one of the things we'd have to look at.
Sure.
I don't, any of us can answer that, I don't have data to show you tonight
Sure.
that can answer that question, so, we'll take that.
Sure.
That's it.
And another question, for the wild idea I proposed for letting people eating free, like several minutes after the closing time, you're worried that it would significantly change the program, which I also am worried, so I agree with your concern. Would that be possible that, say, we try this for 1 week and see how it goes and then reevaluate? Like, we can just try it for 1 week at Arrilaga and see how it works. I really thought that many people would try to get a free meal after the regular closing time. First of all, it's really late for Arrilaga, and nobody wants to like stay that late to get a free meal. Second, that free meal is not like a guaranteed good meal, because if you don't come at regular hours, it's likely that like most of the food is run out. You only come come in the dining hall to get some salad. So I don't think many people would try to arbitrage that. So maybe like we can like try for a week and see how it goes. If like a lot of people rushing 5 minutes after the regular closing time and within 3 minutes all the food left over is gone, then probably it's not a good idea, but we can maybe at least try.
Well, we have late night in Arriaga and at Lakeside, so it's
There's
not
a demand for
closed.
food at later in the night. For
Much
sure.
later. Tap
And
closes at
undergraduate
2.
students especially are asking us to keep our hours open later.
Yeah.
They've been the driving
Beyond
force
2.
behind why Ricker has extended their hours till later, why Lakeside has extended their hours till later. So closing at 9 p.m. is a student-driven initiative. That's what they've been asking us for. But I think we're making a lot of assumptions. I think there's room for us to do a couple more studies to look at it and see, what does the dining hall look like? Just how does this work at the end of the night? I don't want to have people that are coming to our dining hall that are receiving the dregs.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the proper way. I don't think that's the way that you guys expect for us to deal with this problem, is that you're scraping the bottom of a bowl
Right.
to come up with something for food. I don't think that's the answer. I think we can come up with something that isn't that, but I think we need to look at some of the data. I think it bears doing some studies and looking at this stuff. And I know that my boss, that Eric, is working with the task force, the affordability task force, to come up with these
I
plans.
think it's just clear that you need more money to make sure that when you do it well.
Mm-hmm.
Lawrence?
I just had a quick question. Several people have brought up, including especially Gabby, about that maybe you're not the right people to talk to at the infrastructural level, like budget-wise, because ultimately someone ultimately is setting a budget for this. So my question is who should we talk to if these proposed programs where we're operating under this limited resource model, who
The
should
budget
we be
group.
talking
The
to?
budget group. Tim Warner is already on board with doing this. It's just slow.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the
But-
budget for next year has already been submitted by last August.
And
Yeah.
okay.
That's fine. It's not gonna be like $1 billion. The budget group numbers are pretty high.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be $1 billion. It's also not gonna be 10,000. It's somewhere in the middle. It's enough. We can find money for that.
Do we still have people on the?
Yeah, so
Can
now it's
I
Abisola.
say something? It's not a question about this, but Bree is here because she's president of the law school Bree Wickerton, and several students have questions about housing. So could you two just connect on the way out?
Sure.
I don't want to take up space from this
Or do
conversation.
you want
or exchange
to
emails.
put yourself
Absolutely.
on the
Yeah.
list?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Abisola?
So we're happy to stay and answer questions here. I don't think we're gonna come to a solution that's agreed to here. It certainly is useful though for us to hear what the questions are, hear what the suggestions are. That's useful information for us to consider. So we're happy to do that. We can do that now. I know that Yiching is anxious about the schedule. I'm happy to do that now. You could send us questions, whatever is most convenient, acceptable to you. We're here for.
Okay, I'm gonna conclude this session because I already have a lot of the stuff to be gone over. However, I would ask everybody who are interested, I'm thinking maybe we can, as we suggested, we can create a small working group on this, talk about this more, because 30 minutes is really not enough on this conversation. And
It's an ongoing
Are you guys
conversation
gonna
we're
be
having.
here next week?
Yeah, they are.
So let's just write down your questions and submit them to
Yes.
the co-chairs. Cause I don't think the working group is working group stuff to death though, so
Let me just say, big problem, we probably won't come back next week with a solution.
Yeah,
But at least
but-
it's something for us to consider and to
yeah,
start.
it's great conversation, a lot of ideas around percolating. Hopefully somebody, wants to ask you much more specific and you can, talk to whoever you need to. Maybe we can get some better answers or more direct questions, because we're all operating under the same framework now, since people understand.
I would like to have the questions of how, does our meal plan work, so I can understand that just at a base level, so that we can understand it, and how serving food in the dining hall works. I think you guys need to to understand that more. Maybe we can do a better job of explaining that to you guys so you understand, you know, kind of exactly what you're asking for, so the solutions can be more based in what we actually do. So I'd like to provide that for you.
This is so simple in terms of what it should look like. It's not simple how to get there, but at Stanford, because it's such a weird, like it's a food desert off campus basically if you don't have a car. It's kind of easier to do it than it would be like at Columbia where there are a lot of options. But again, you just need bigger, there's something that you are missing. If we gave you that, I have no doubt you could implement it.
But I also want to finish off saying that while we come up with these solutions, there are people who are not eating.
And about that, just like the just like the 5 guest plans, please direct these people to the graduate life office. All of the deans have meal cards that have 5 on them at a time or more. So obviously we're not saying if you're hungry, wait for task force implementations. No, if you're hungry, you go to Ken's office and they can fix that right away. But Stanford's so decentralized, a lot of people don't even know what GLOW is. So that's where we can be really useful in spreading the word.
And also adding on like what I just said. So I think the co-chairs we're gonna meet with the vice provost for graduate education and the vice provost for student affairs next week.
The new VPG,
I think both me and Patty.
Okay.
So if you have any questions, I would recommend you like bring the questions earlier, and the co-chairs we can look over the questions and to see which questions are appropriate for that meeting, because that would be a very like high level meeting, and they're actually responsible for submitting the budget and everything. So that would be also one resource to reach out to. And I'm gonna conclude here because yes.
I can ask after.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Because we have a lot of things on the agenda today, and we have 4 things left over on the agenda. But thank you very much for coming.
Alright, thank you. So we'll see you next week.
Yes.
I don't have any of my cards with me, as soon as
Yeah, I'll get your
timing. Okay.
I can send her an email to everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, then you send me an email saying she has possible.
Because like I feel like that's the kind of thing that should be distributed by CAs. It is distributed.
Yeah, I changed the agenda.
Like every quarter. Yes, but like there are. We haven't gotten emails.
I replied to the email. I said sorry. Yeah, I said sorry. I missed your email.
Which one? Okay. Sorry. I can totally be wrong, but I don't think
do you think you can answer questions? Do you think you can? I mean, I can ask like motion to vote.
But anyways.
If you think you can do that.
I think I can. I can just send a response to email so I can send her like
You mean you can ask her a couple?
So I can get a couple sentences on her behalf, but she's come to the past few meetings, so I can talk about.
Yeah, I think that's. I want to also move this over as soon as possible.
Let's do that.
Show that we're doing
Yeah.
trying to do it ourselves.
Yeah, alright guys.
Through hours.
This is bizarre.
I'm just checking whether we have cards.
They just need conclusion and they're coming back.
Okay.
I'm back. Hold up.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Oh, is that a card? So our funding committee, as you all know, is probably the meeting every week, and we do hire people from time to time to fill in the positions on our funding committee, because funding committee requires a lot of work every week because they do man all the students' events. And this is a request from Episoda, our funding co-chair, to fill in one of the positions on funding committee for Helen Zhang. She's not here tonight because she has a class, and because I switched the agenda, as I said, and there seems to be some miscommunication between us, and she cannot make it right now, but Abisola is here, and she's happy to answer any questions about Helen, and I would be willing to basically motion to vote on this so that they will have extra people next week on their funding committee meeting.
She was here last too, so.
Yes, she was here last week.
So she's just sort of what you did for Melanie last session. like kind of like a,
No.
oh, this is not the,
So, okay, so I was a funding committee co-chair,
okay,
and Melanie hired somebody else named
Okay.
Harmony, who was filling in, I guess, kind of for the position that we'd be wanting Helen to do. But Harmony is staying on the funding committee. Amina is also a funding committee co-chair. But the way that we've orchestrated or split up the tasks so far, there would be enough for each person to do. If we had all 4 people like working on it together, and Helen had been coming to the funding committee meetings on Monday. So we allocated it so that there's at least 5-ish different aspects to it, as far as looking at the scheduling, so figuring out the VSOs that have made appointments for Monday's meetings, making sure that their events are on the Facebook page and that those events are being posted about and publicized regularly, making sure that the events are on Google Calendar, and like working with people to make sure that those are like up to date or like have detailed enough descriptions. There's a VSO like budget spreadsheet where we keep track of all the money that we are giving out to VSOs and make sure that they're not going over their funding caps. And then there's also maintaining the granted page, which is the actual approval process of the funding. And there's been this other component of funding events that we haven't been doing to make sure that people are having food that they say they're gonna have, or having the number of people that they advertise. So there's like an additional component that we weren't able to fulfill last year, but I think if we had the additional person in the group, we would be able to tackle all of those things and run more efficiently. So we would be allocating each of those tasks to a different person.
is this paid?
Yeah.
Yes. So adding to the paid components, every year we get, as most of you know, that every year, and Lawrence know specifically that every year we get our money not from the student fees. All our stipends come from all the position stipends. They come from our enrollment, the ASC enrollment. And this year, I think the same amount of discretionary money we get as from last year. So basically, every extra person at the funding committee will reduce like other people's like their stipend like per person.
But it's also reducing our workload.
Yeah,
so
also reducing the workload.
we're fine with that.
Yeah. Any other questions? Alright, I'm gonna motion to vote on this so that we will have extra people to work on this because we have a lot of events coming up. Alright. Since this is a positional vote, I'm gonna ask for a hand vote. All those in favor of voting to approve Helen John to become part of the funding committee, please raise your hand.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Okay. Opposed? Abstention? Alright, congratulations. Alright, we have 3 previous notice resolutions of yours. Over here, the first one is brought up by Luca to implement the constitutional amendments.
Hi everyone. So this bill is simply to bring the joint bylaws, undergraduate senate bylaws, and graduate student council bylaws into compliance with the new constitutional amendments that just passed in spring. Most of it's just cosmetic to, for example, switch special fees to annual grants, because special fees doesn't exist anymore. With nominations commission, I did make edits to the bylaws to reflect more accurately what the process is for like selecting the committee now, etc. So if there are any questions about language, I'm happy to answer them. If you have any suggestions about the language that you think needs to be changed, feel free to email me. It might be a little bit difficult because the undergraduate senate already passed it yesterday, so we would have to go back and have it repassed by them, but just feel free to comment in the document itself if there are any edits or changes that you want to make.
If you have any questions now or next week, Luca will be here and he'll be happy to answer all your questions. Cool. This is fast. Alright, next one is Shannon. Oh, you're here. Okay, perfect. So it's about the financial literacy event.
Previously, we had approved 700 from discretionary funding to fund this event and also event services. So the current state is that we haven't got the bill from event services yet, so I actually still don't know exactly how much that is going on.
It's usually very close to the estimate.
Yeah, and so our food event, we had to actually last minute order like a bunch of extra pizza because the RSVP count went up overnight, like
That
by
always happens.
like 60 people. Our final food count was because GSC was we were covering the event services, which is still not been billed to us yet. 800 each was covered by Mind Over Money and Stanford Federal Credit Union, and so that left 287.24 cents for the GSC. In the bill, you'll see that that amount is requested, and that would be like a possible like addition or like however much is not being used by the eventual Tressitor bill will also like go to that. I'm just asking for that to be stretched by that amount. The other request is from Mind Over Money because they got some like requests on like Sunday before Tuesday that people wanted to have this event filmed. And then they decided to like go ahead and look for a way to get this event filmed. And that actually cost $1,400, and then they were wondering if the GSC could help out with covering the cost of making this film because there were a lot of student requests to get the because people couldn't make it. So yeah, those are the two.
Are they, can I, oh, sorry.
Yes, correct.
Can't you, the $1,400, who is that? Do you know who that's going to? What's it saying here? I'm sorry.
Email chain.
Okay.
I'm just shocked that it costs $1,400.
Yeah.
You guys, this is the cost of events, and this is not a guy standing there. This is a person who's maybe licensed or union, and he's gonna do post-production editing. This is the cost of art and things that are not engineering. They still cost money.
Yes.
Well,
No,
I mean, I'm not saying that, but.
for Stanford 2, for like the mic helper, we paid significant amount of money, especially if it goes through event services.
Event services is union labor.
Because it's union labor.
Yeah.
So we're supporting people.
But you can also film it yourself if you deem that the cost is too high.
The choice was by Mind Over Money, right?
Yeah, so that's the part that I have some concerns
Who's Mind Over Money? I'm sorry.
It's the financial literacy initiative on campus. No, it's official. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Sorry, I was involved in Mind Over Money undergrad and helped too.
Mind Over Money is like part of like student services or something.
They don't have a permanent structure, so I don't know exactly where they are.
They basically have like a few.
And I know they have a personal finance series, so I know the value of Mind Over Money. I was confused about why they made the ultimate decision.
Yeah, that's.
And then ask us for money.
Yeah, like
after
after
that.
After
the fact.
Yeah, so I explained to them that I would have to write this as a bill, because I think they're not very used to working in terms of getting things pre-approved. And because like the Mind Over Money lady actually paid me via PayPal because they don't have like.
I see.
And there was a $24 processing fee, but I didn't press for that.
No.
I felt like it might be a little extra.
Well then,
I just don't know why we're having not at the point of a gun necessarily, but it's like, I know we have to approve it, but it's like.
they don't have any money. Mind Over Money doesn't have any money. They don't have.
They didn't go to this.
That's a great name.
It's not a budgeting thing. It's not a budgeting thing.
I'm gonna establish
It's a funding thing.
city
It's a
order
separate
now.
thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna agree with you that it's a funding thing. Like if they would like to have the money to put on events, but the university has not funded them to do so, and they actually got a lot of outside funding from like a nonprofit branch of Goldman Sachs, and so like they've definitely had to go elsewhere besides the university. And so if we're upset with them not having money, then that's something to point out that the university isn't valuing them. And they're doing the best they can with the shoestring budget.
Exactly.
Kari?
My question is, so this funding that we would be giving them, would come out of shared discretionary or a yearly events budget?
Shared discretionary.
Shared discretionary.
Wait.
So this, and also this 987 is on top of the 500 already, right? Because we already had a 500 through the purchase order that I approved before, right?
Yes,
No, I
we
think
had
there is-
700 that was allocated, that was approved, and so 500 of that would be through the purchase.
Okay. So this is not on top of the 500.
And so there's the event services estimate that gave me to 700 because there's also the work order for the custodian and stuff.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten the receipts for those yet because I literally just got an email yesterday saying that your request has been completed. Which meant that like we actually cleaned up your stuff on Tuesday. So I think they they might take a little while sending me that.
Right. Okay. So it'd be more like 700 plus. So in total, not 1,500, but 1,000. Yeah. It's not 1,500. It's 1,000. Just this.
So just this is 1,000.
Yeah.
This extra request plus the whatever we already.
Okay, so what I was gonna say is that I personally am okay with spending this money, because, it's good to have that being filmed. It's something that that is in the Mind Over Money website, but since we are paying for half of it, we can own it too, put it on our website, just make sure that that's always available for our students. And yeah, it's hard to live on this like tuition/stipend, so why don't we help ourselves out with affordability? Okay, so Gabby?
Yeah, I was going to say that this event, due to Shauna's great work, is what is now categorized as a high-profile speaker event.
Yes.
This is the cheapest high-profile speaker event I've ever seen in my life. So this is not a lot of money. We spend way more on other things. We have the money. If we were broke, it'd be a different discussion. We're not broke. This is probably some of the best money we'll spend all year. I don't think that this needs to be that difficult of a choice.
Can you remind me, what is this covering? Is it just any financial question, or is it like investing, blah, blah, blah?
We talked a lot about investing, but also like about like how people make financial decisions. I think there was mostly investing actually.
Okay, because I at my fellowship, it's good to know maybe for when I leave here, but I'm not investing any money at the moment, so that's just a observation. But, yeah, so okay. My only concern is, it silly, it sounds kind of silly, this is, what's, in the past, do we get grad students from across the spectrum, or is it all graduate school of business? Like, who are the majority who attend?
I think it's all across the spectrum.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
They have a list of all the attendees.
Okay.
It's not just because
GSC doesn't look at
have typically their own event.
They
probably
already
already know.
they've invested, they know for sure. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, my comment would be that I personally would be very happy to motion for both of this, to approve this. The one thing that concerns me is about the Richard's, basically approving the money after the event is already happened. The decision is made and not by the event already.
Yeah, it happened on Tuesday.
Yeah, the event already happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's done.
Yeah, it happened yesterday.
Yeah, the event already happened.
Had the expense.
So we're talking about retroactive.
Yeah, retroactively.
Which is really cool. That's part of it.
Yeah.
That's used. I don't know if you do that.
Yes, so that's a question that I want to bring up.
Okay.
That's my question. That's why I started saying I personally would be.
Thank you, though, for clarifying.
I didn't know.
Yes, so I want to bring this up, but personally speaking, I would be, as not as chair, but as just a counselor, I would be very happy to approve this event. As Emma said, this is a very high, and also Daddy added, this is a high profile event, and I think it has helped the students very like serve the students very well. So I would ask the counselors to basically this is I don't believe this will be like basically like a one-sided vote. So I believe like some counselors will have reservations on this. So I believe this will be a free vote for everybody. If you believe the students, the interest is figured out bylaws or other funding regulations, or you believe that. I hope my point is clear.
Well,
Yeah.
shit, yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
Oh, nothing.
So if it's,
Why did
if it's a done deal, has this group, the Mind Over Money, has anyone sort of explained have we tried to reach out and like make sure that proper protocols followed like in the future?
The issue is that Shannon sent me the bill, I think last Monday, right? And we didn't host a meeting last Wednesday.
So it's on us?
Yes, so part of the mistake. So I want, as a person who get all the emails, I want to give everybody like all the information that is available.
Oh, I see.
Understand. I had to explain to them about like some bills and
Oh yeah, they would have known that.
Yeah.
So it was like on Sunday that they decided that they wanted to do the filming, and then the event happened on Tuesday, and so they like asked me on like Monday, like GSC if I happened this. So then
Well, I guess it's not technically retroactive if you don't do it on Monday.
Was it last Tuesday or this Tuesday?
Well, it happened yesterday.
No, it was last Tuesday.
Last Tuesday?
Yeah, the event is from last Tuesday. Because I get the bill.
So it is retroactive.
It is retroactive.
before the agenda was made, so.
So Lawrence, yeah?
Sorry. I guess my two comments were, disregarding the retroactive part, my two comments are based on my access to grant ed and looking at the discretionary fund, I think we're fine on money in terms of like spending it. My own concern would be like, when are we getting more money for meeting food? It keeps going to the negative, and then I have to actually ask them to manually move. Yeah, I don't know. Well, because I put it under meeting food because that's where it should go. But then I can't manually move from miscellaneous.
I know.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
But we have enough money in the miscellaneous that it's not. I don't think it's a problem. And my second comment is, if we do fund it, I think we should request them to make sure that GSC is written somewhere as a co-sponsor for the event. Mostly symbolic, because I also think that since GSC represents all graduate students, this would be a really good pairing for Mind Over Money as well, that they do have the support of the Graduate Student Council. And so it helps branding for us, but it helps branding for them as well. So it's a mutual thing.
So my other comment was, was that, that it's kind of like what you were gonna say is that, again, without the retroactive thing in mind, when I came up with this thought is that the money that we spend is supposed to help graduate students at large, and I think this falls very well into that category, especially because it's something that makes it everlasting, because it's a video. So it's not only like these students that attended that are gonna benefit, it's really like most people who are graduate students
If
who
you
may
want to
wanna
know
watch
about
it.
this, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just, that was like a side before the retroactive clock has started running, because I don't, Eugene.
Yes, so you basically covered my comments, but the thing I want to talk about is that, so speaking of this, do we want to establish a tradition like this? Like if the event serves graduate students, are we allowed to maybe amend our bylaws in some sense?
But that is our bylaw, that it should support all, like that's what it's supposed to be.
No, I mean retroactive.
Oh, well, I don't know about that.
So that's my concern. So I'm not talking about like.
He's gonna need to run some modeling. That's true.
Yeah. And by the way, adding to Lauren's comment about the money, I think we have 5K left in our account.
Four.
Oh, 4 now?
Well, because they moved to
the negative.
They cut out the negative, so now it's like 4 point something.
Plus some grant for more money.
Plus, we got money from grant?
I have a cash sale. That
Oh,
should be like on
okay.
paper anymore.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess we'll have
And
some
running
more,
everything.
and then this meeting definitely will cost 200 something.
And then next week's
And then
meeting.
next week will cost 200 something. So we're still looking at 3 1.something K before the cash sales.
But that's enough for retreat.
That's enough. I mean, even with this, we'll still have enough for a retreat.
Yeah, we still have a retreat. That's my other comment.
Coffee?
Oh yes, so I was going to say we're like this is previous notice, so we can vote on it next week, right? And
We should vote on it.
you want to vote on it tonight? Well, but that's also a suspending precedent. Anyway,
yeah,
so
also, I would speak against like today because the one thing I want to say is that I would want to ask Sharon to. No, I want to ask. No, the money already paid for it.
Oh, it's like a refund? It's like a.
So that shouldn't be so it's not my.
I'm just saying, is the vendor waiting for their money? Because if not, they can charge you interest if you don't pay them on time.
So my money already paid them.
Okay, so we got it. Okay, so then it's not so pricey.
Yeah, but the thing I want to.
Wait, but Kari
I'm
was
sorry.
first.
Yeah,
Yeah, Kari and then.
Anyway, I think it's possible for this to like in all of our communications, like in these meeting notes, everywhere we're saying that this is not a precedent. We don't want to do this in the future. We can communicate that to Mind Over Money. I think it's possible to do this thing while also being clear about our values. And the other thing is like it would also be great to get that fancy video editor to put GSC like on the video itself.
Yeah,
like,
The front page, you should have that, it shows up
Just get
closed
the
captions,
logo.
standard video practice.
Yeah, and make it accessible. Is it accessible? Does it have closed captions?
Closed captions.
I will
It
say.
should.
I mean,
I
think at least 200 of that should be.
That's why I wanted to like ask this to be put on vote next week rather than
Put it on next week. This is the end of my comments. Sorry.
Yeah, that's exactly what I want to talk about. Okay, do you have anybody in speaking order?
I think that's it.
Okay, so this is on previous notice. The channel, as we talked about, I think our intention is that if you can speak to the money to ask them to edit the video to basically adopt to our requirements, and we would be happy to vote on this
They
next
just email the guy who's making it
Yeah.
and say, we want the home screen to have this logo under the 300 DPI logo and say closed captions.
Alright, we're 10 minutes late on our agenda, so the next one is also a previous notice by David about GOP, the graduate, general use permit, sorry.
Just force it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I just wanted to bring this up because I think the Stanford Solidarity Network and Scope 2035 have raised very good points about the conditions of approval for the Stanford general use permit that are strongly based around issues of housing affordability and transit, and taking into account how Stanford's property development is going to impact the East Palo Alto community, as well as I believe members of the Olympic tribe as well. So there's a lot of issues, both around graduate student affordability issues as well as around particular equity issues with the general use permit. And I'm wondering if, and what I wanted to do was to bring a resolution to endorse the conditions of approval raised by the Stanford Solidarity Network. So I've sent those two attachments that list out the particular conditions that they describe. But as I understand it, these two organizations are basically asking the general use permit to take into greater account the issue of graduate student affordability as a result. So I don't know if we should take some time to read over the resolution I've written or the documents. I wanted to raise this as the deadline for Charleston.
Okay, great. I think Chin has to step out. He has to.
He asked me to share. So, any comments? He's just going back.
I mean, do you still have? Yeah. I think that's us.
I'm back. What's up?
Well, it's on previous notice, so we don't need to vote.
I will add that tomorrow night at Palo Alto City Hall is this conversation about the gov at 6 p.m. I think this is an interesting issue that's we can think about around the Bay Area. So for example, like when Google was building its campus in San Jose, there were a lot of conversations about what is their duty to provide housing. And so it's something that like is sort of an issue that's around the Bay, and we want Stanford to keep building, right? Because we want as much graduate housing on campus as possible, but we also want things to be affordable. And there was recently that that issue around, I think, Stanford's contribution to local teaching to the school system recently. To the school district.
Which is no longer, that has been,
What's
the
resolved?
county of Santa Clara kiboshed the whole thing. So they said that Stanford essentially underhandedly dealt with the school district without the county's. So it's no
Okay,
longer,
so that's a new
a
thing.
deal is no longer in the works.
But anyway, I just mean to say that
It will go on for a long time, it's like months.
right, as this GUP thing has gone on for a long time. We were voting on this last year, which
One more year, I think. Every meeting I go to for the community council, and it's like, okay, we gotta push the agenda back 3 months, push the agenda back 3 months. It's just so big.
yeah, this is big. Housing is big, but I think the county is actually like.
I think this is the time. Like I'm saying effort.
This
We
is
want to follow this timeline.
But I'm saying the county is able to exert some pressure. Like if Stanford has to shell out money based on the county's requirements, they will. So that's all I mean to say.
And also, maybe David would want to know this, that there will be Stanford grad students, will be sort of hopefully in force at this meeting. It's tomorrow, 6 p.m. Palo Alto City Hall, to discuss sort of affordability and childcare issues. So, yeah, just want to put that out there that if you are interested in these issues, that there will be Stanford students sharing their stories of affordability at this meeting, and hopefully there will be a very strong presence of grad students.
Alright, so that concludes our normal agenda items. Do we have anything for Owen? The retreat. Sure.
You wanna talk about the retreat?
Yeah, I think last week we had some questions about retreat, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, if we want to talk about the, how we're gonna use it, maybe looking up some quotes would be helpful. Just to get it as well, so if you are interested. Since you're
Is an action required, resolution?
No, we vote on it next week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're gonna vote on it next week.
Yeah.
Could we talk about the retreat, what's the status right now?
I feel like not many people responded to my tweet, so I think the times may not work for everybody. I don't know if it's worth resending it out with some beginning of fall, because that might, people might be on vacation and they might come back and
Could you send me an email? I can send out the current video again.
The what?
Could you send the email to me and I can basically forward to everybody again?
Yeah, because I filled it out, I since then my calendar has updated, so I can go back and then re-edit, but.
Yeah, people don't respond. I'm gonna use share email inbox to spam them basically.
I was considering making a more detailed survey kind of thing, asking what people actually want to get out of the retreat, because that would do you still want to talk about other things related to the retreat?
No, just I would like a general date timeline.
Yeah.
If it's not gonna happen in June, will it happen in early September then?
Okay, I think maybe I will remake the lines to me so that it includes some early September dates, because that might work better.
Yeah, that's possible.
Only 5 people filled it out, and then I resent it, it's still only 5 people filled it out.
Okay. Send it to me. I will basically spam everybody's box. If you don't respond, I'm gonna send you individual emails.
Yeah, well, I respond. Okay.
Alright.
That's
Anything else for you open? Okay.
I'm sorry, is next week the last meeting?
If everybody thinks we're not gonna meet the week afterwards. So it depends on your response for the survey. By the way, I updated the survey to the twice 2 weeks to once every 2 weeks.
But that was for the summer stuff.
Yeah, that's for the summer. So for this quarter, next week will be the last one.
For the summer, what time is that?
Same time.
Same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, so next week is our last meeting for the academic year?
Yes, that's fine.
Because my work schedule is 9 to 6.
Alright, thank you everybody.
I have to take part.
And you're adjourned.
California DOJ. I'm living in SF working yeah. So I'm like,
No, don't miss the